Today we're exploring the extraordinary life and, well, the profound thought of Edith Stein. She's a figure who really defies easy categorization.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it. A brilliant philosopher, a pioneering feminist, a Catholic saint, and a Holocaust victim. It's just an incredible combination.
It really is. Her journey weaves together this rigorous intellect, a really deep spiritual awakening, and immense personal sacrifice, and all in ways that offer these unique insights into what it means to be human. And our mission, really, is to offer you a kind of shortcut. A shortcut to understanding not just what she thought, but why it actually matters today.
Yeah, how does it connect?
Exactly. We want to illuminate how her unique perspectives on things like empathy, the self, community, how they can deepen your understanding of human connection, and maybe even personal growth. Hopefully offering some aha moments that go, beyond just the surface facts.
Starting with her early years and those formative philosophical roots, Edith Stein was born into an observant German Jewish family. But then, by the age of 12, she made this really significant shift, declared herself an agnostic.
12 years old.
It's quite striking, isn't it, how early she embarked on such deep intellectual and, spiritual questioning.
It really is. And her academic brilliance was clear right from the start. She rose incredibly quickly through the university system.
Studied quite a range, didn't she? Oh, yeah.
Philosophy, psychology, history, German philology at Breslau and then Göttingen. And she passed her Staatsexamen with distinction in January 1915. Just a remarkable intellect for her time, especially, as a young woman then.
And then comes Edmund Husserl, a huge influence.
Absolutely pivotal.
Yeah.
She was his pupil, his teaching assistant, and his philosophy, phenomenology profoundly shaped her.
That idea of returning to objects or back to things, just stripping away assumptions to see things as they are.
Exactly.
It's fascinating, though, how many of Husserl's own students, Stein included, were actually led towards Christian faith through this method. How does that work? How can a seemingly rational method lead to that kind of spiritual shift?
That's a really great question. Phenomenology's method, what Husserl called phenomenological reduction, it aimed to intuit the essence, the eidos, of phenomena. He called it Wesensschau.
Wesensschau.
Think of like peeling an onion. You're trying to get to the core, the real what it isness of an experience, a pure insight, sort of independent of our biases.
Right.
So for Stein, this really rigorous process of examining experience, especially human consciousness, empathy, how we connect, it seemed to open up a deeper reality for her.
Okay.
It led her and others to question purely materialist views and, explore these spiritual dimensions that phenomenology itself didn't necessarily forbid, but maybe opened the door to.
That makes sense. And her direct confrontation with human suffering seems to have deeply shaped her work, too, leading right to her doctorate.
Definitely. During World War I, she did a nursing course, served in an Austrian field hospital.
Tough conditions.
Very. Caring for the sick in the typhus ward, working in an operating theater, witnessing the death of young people, had a profound impact. She wrote, "I no longer have a life of my own."
Wow. And that experience came just before she got her doctorate in 1917, summa cum laude from Freiburg.
With her thesis, The Problem of Empathy.
Which was a towering achievement for a woman back then.
Absolutely. Especially given the barriers she faced. She fought constantly just to be allowed to register for rehabilitation.
That's the qualification for university teaching, right?
Yes, and it was flat out denied to women at the time. She persisted, campaigned for it.
And even Husserl wasn't exactly helpful there, was he? His recommendation letter was apparently lukewarm.
Less than enthusiastic, yeah. And she applied to Göttingen in 1919 and was rejected. You could just imagine the frustration.
Oh, absolutely. Brilliant mind, groundbreaking work, and still hitting that wall just because of her gender. A stark reminder of those systemic hurdles.
But despite all that, her major study, the one intended as her habilitation thesis, the Beiträge we mentioned earlier, it was still published in Husserl's prestigious Jahrbuch in 1922. That tells you something about the sheer force of her intellect, even when the system was pushing back.
So let's get into that work on empathy. It's really central to her early philosophy, isn't it? And much more nuanced than just feeling someone else's feelings.
Much more. On the problem of empathy, she argues it's fundamentally different from just, say, outer perception. Well, you might see someone's pained face, perceive it outwardly. But the pain itself isn't a thing you perceive directly like you perceive the face.
Okay, I see. It's an internal state you're grasping.
Exactly, and that's a crucial distinction she makes. She carefully differentiates empathy from fellow feeling or sympathy. The German term is Mitfühlen.
Mitfühlen. So what's the difference there?
Sympathy or Mitfühlen is when you genuinely feel the other person's emotion, like their grief, almost as if it were your own. It's a primordial sharing. Empathy for Stein is a step removed. You understand their grief, you grasp their experience, but you aren't necessarily primordially feeling that same grief yourself in that moment. It's understanding, not necessarily identical feeling.
So she wasn't just talking about like a gut reaction. She actually rejected existing theories of empathy, the ones based on imitation or analogy.
She did. Things like imitation, inference by analogy, association. She found them insufficient.
Why? What was missing for her?
Because in her view, they tried to explain how empathy arises before properly defining what empathy is. You need to grasp the essence first, the Wesenschaung of empathy itself.
Back to that core phenomenological idea.
Precisely. And a key insight for her is that empathy allows us to grasp much more than just feelings. It lets us understand another person's dispositions, their motivations, even their social context and their character.
That's powerful. It means empathy isn't just about feeling for someone, it's about understanding them.
Right. And this plays a crucial role, she argued, in constituting our own personhood, in self-evaluation, especially when you encounter experiences vastly different from your own.
So when you really try to step into someone else's shoes, maybe someone from a completely different background, that deep understanding beyond just empathy actually shapes who you become.
Exactly. It's not just about them, it's about your growth too. It expands your own self.
That's a profound thought.
And there's a nuance too. While empathy usually has a sensual basis, you see the tears, hear the tone of voice. Stein differentiated the sensual bits from the perceptual or cognitive aspects and from the actual grasping of the other's emotions or motivations. It makes empathy much more than just a feeling.
But she did acknowledge potential problems, right?
Yeah.
Empathic deceptions.
Yes. For instance, wrongly assuming someone experiences something just like you do. Her example was attributing your perception of color to someone who's colorblind.
Right, projecting your own experience.
But she argued these deceptions can often be corrected through further empathic acts or careful attention. And she's also doing something interesting. Empathy with a psychophysical individual is only really possible for a subject of the same type, which does raise questions about the limits of understanding across really fundamental differences.
Interesting point. Okay, moving on from empathy, Stein had this really rich, layered understanding of the human person, body, soul, and spirit.
Yes, she developed this in works like Beiträge and later in her lectures on the structure of the human person. And for her, a key point was that only a human being can truly say I.
The I, what did that represent for her?
The I is the very core of the person. It's what allows us to view external impressions and then respond with personal freedom. It enables this unique having oneself in hand. Meaning genuine self-mastery, agency, the capacity to choose how we respond, rather than just being driven by impulse or external forces.
Okay. And the soul, how does she see that?
Not as something static. She described it as an evolving, living root with innate capacities. And crucially, it's characterized by an inner openness.
Openness to what?
To other subjects, other people, and significantly, to value. The soul has to be open to values to actually receive them, to recognize them.
And then the spirit. That had a divine connection for her, didn't it?
Very much so. She believed God is pure spirit and the archetype of all spiritual being. And she understood this archetype as tripersonal, reflecting the Trinity. Spirit itself, for her, is this superabundant, diffusive life. It's active, dynamic, self-shaping, and even self-giving. All other spiritual beings, including ours, are founded in that divine spirit. Ultimately, all forms of spirit make up a kind of unity.
So you have these layers, body, soul, spirit. How did she see them interacting? It sounds complex.
It is, but it's holistic. The sensate life power, that's what grounds our psyche in our lived body, in nature. And the spiritual life power that makes the psyche accessible to the world of values, to the spirit of God, as she put it. These two are interwoven through what she called psychic causality.
Psychic causality.
Yeah, it means our physical experiences influence our emotions, our thoughts, and our spiritual life. Yeah. Our openness to values informs our choices and actions. It all works together.
Okay, so with this complex, layered person, how did she deal with, well, causality and freedom? If experiences just flow along in a stream of consciousness, as she said, where does free will fit?
Right, that's a central question.
Yeah.
She talked about experiences flowing in this undivided and indivisible continuum, unified by the I. And she introduced these concepts: life feelings, Lebensgefühl, and life power, Lebenskraft. These function as a distinct kind of causality at the experiential level.
How so? Like moods affecting perception?
Exactly. These affected dispositions, like feeling weary or energetic, they bring about certain cognitive or emotional states and literally determine how you experience things. Weariness might make colors seem duller, sounds more grating.
She even had a general law of causality, didn't she? Something like all psychic occurrences are caused.
Yes, all psychic occurrences are caused, and no psychic reality without causality. She saw it as regulated by this life power, which, as you say, sounds quite deterministic.
It does. So where's the freedom?
Well, here's the crucial part. Stein argued that beyond these merely causal factors, the psyche is also influenced by that interplay of sensate and spiritual life powers, by motivational forces, and crucially by the willpower of autonomous individuals.
Ah, the will.
Yes. While our psychic states and bodily feelings are influenced by this psychic causality, the truly creative aspect of volition, of making a choice, is not, for her, a causal effect in the same way.
So the will stands apart.
In a sense, it positions the will, and by extension the spirit, as standing outside that causal order governing the soul's moment-to-moment experiences. So your weariness might influence your perception, making it harder to focus.
All right.
But your conscious choice to push through, to concentrate anyway, that's a free act. It's not just another link in the causal chain.
Okay, so even within this framework of causality, there's a genuine space for freedom, for creativity, stemming from the will and the spirit. It's a powerful balance.
It is indeed.
Let's shift gears a bit now to how Stein viewed values, community, and society. We touched on values with the soul's openness, but she saw emotions as key here too, right?
Absolutely central. She believed emotions were our most direct access to values.
How did that work?
For Stein, values aren't just abstract ideas. They are disclosed in the very act of having emotions. This reflects what philosophers call value realism, the idea that values are real aspects of the world we can apprehend.
And she had quite a nuanced view of feelings and emotions themselves.
She did. She suggested there are perhaps two aspects of the same thing. Effective intentionality, our directedness towards the world through feeling, though she did make some fine distinctions.
Like distinguishing value feeling from the feeling of the existence of a value. That sounds subtle.
It is subtle. Let's try to unpack it. A value feeling might be that immediate gut sense that, say, compassion is inherently good. It's a direct emotional grasp of the value itself.
Okay.
But the feeling of the existence of a value is maybe a more conscious realization, like recognizing that this specific act someone just performed is compassionate, and therefore confirming that compassion exists as a real value applicable in the world. It's moving from maybe a subjective response to a more objective recognition.
I see. And the other distinction, value emotion versus the depth of the feeling.
Yeah, think about maybe the difference between a fleeting moment of joy, a feeling that comes and goes, versus a really profound, life-altering experience of joy that stays with you, shapes you. That latter experience has depth because it's deeply connected to something valuable.
So it's about the significance, the connection to objective value, not just the intensity.
Exactly. It allows us to differentiate between just a passing reaction and a deeper, more grounded recognition of values reality.
And she felt this emotional life was essential. Saying something like a non-emotive person is an impossibility.
Yes, underlining how integral our emotional life is to who we are as persons. Which makes sense given her focus on empathy, right? It all connects.
It does. Now, thinking bigger about community, how did she understand shared experiences?
She offered a really multidimensional account. She rejected the idea that the sharedness of an experience lies only in the content, what we experience, or only in the subjects, us experiencing it, or only in the mode, how we experience it.
So it's all interconnected.
Yes, and she introduced this fascinating concept, the double direction of collective intentionality.
Double direction.
It means when we share an experience, we're not just focused on the shared object, like watching a sunset together. We also have an explicit intention upon the communal experience itself.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about collective grief. A community might be grieving our loss, focused on the object of grief, but they're also simultaneously aware that we share this experience of loss together. There's an awareness of the share.
Okay. That makes sense. We're aware of the we.
Precisely. And this leads to what she called communal content. It's a unity of sense, a shared understanding, but it still allows for individual variations, what she termed experiential coloring.
So my experience of our shared grief might be slightly different from yours, colored by my own perspective.
Exactly. Our individual experiences are colored by being members of the community. and the community's experience is shaped by its members. It's a reciprocal feedback loop, a very dynamic view of shared life.
And she even applied these ideas about collective intention to the state, conceptualizing it as a collective person.
Yes, a collective person or juridical person.
That sounds pretty abstract, a collective person.
It is abstract, but it was her way of thinking about the state's agency. She saw the state as, well, technically non-personal, but still the ultimate originator of positive legal rights.
And where does its ability to act come from?
From the individuals within it, the natural persons. The state derives its ability to perform free acts, like passing laws or declaring war, from the collective will of its citizens, channeled through its institutions.
And her key assumption was?
Her key assumption was that the state can only really function as a unitary sovereign subject if it can be claimed to be the author of its own acts as a totality, as to act as one entity.
How was that idea received? What were the implications?
Well, it allowed her to build a sophisticated theory about the state's moral authority, its responsibilities, how it balances power with individual freedom. It was her way of tackling big questions about sovereignty and the rule of law. And her analysis really did make an original contribution, influencing later political thinkers like Carl Schmitt and Hannah Arendt.
Interesting connection there. Okay, let's turn now to another complex area. Her views on women, her evolving faith, and ultimately her destiny. She was a committed feminist from early on, wasn't she?
Absolutely. Right from her youth, she was very aware of the great cultural upheaval happening regarding women's roles.
And she didn't just observe it.
No, she actively fought. She vigorously defended the right of women to enter all professions, all branches of education, without exception. She specifically rejected calling women the weaker sex and argued they could handle physically demanding jobs.
And we already mentioned her own campaigning for the habilitation.
Exactly. She lived that fight.
But then there's this nuance, or maybe a tension. While fighting for equality, she also argued for essential differences between men and women.
That's right. It's a complex part of her thought. Her view was that the woman's soul is somehow more intimately connected to the body, and that women tend to have deeper and fuller emotional lives.
Which led her to see a specific role for women.
Yes, she believed women have a crucial political social role as the educators of humanity. Because of this orientation towards the personal dimension, as she saw it, and a unique sensitivity to moral values, she even posited that abstraction in every sense is alien to the feminine nature.
That sounds quite essentialist from a modern perspective.
It does. And she aligned herself with thinkers like Aquinas, arguing that different bodies, male and female, imply different kinds of souls. She rejected the idea that only the bodies differ.
Yet she also balanced this with traditional views, mentioning woman as serving the spouse.
She did endorse the traditional account of woman as serving and obedient to the spouse who protects her. But, crucially, she immediately balanced it by asserting that male and female are absolutely equal, and that both made in the image of God.
With different prototypes, Jesus for men, Mary for women.
That was her framework, yes. It's a fascinating mix of progressive action and more traditional, even essentialist, thought about gender roles in nature.
And surprisingly, perhaps she was also quite forward-thinking on sexuality.
Yes, remarkably so for her time. She acknowledged that modern youth has proclaimed its sexual rights. She wasn't naive about the changing world, and she advocated for a broad-minded approach to sexuality and for proper sex education for both boys and girls in school.
Quite a complex picture on gender. Now let's trace her spiritual path. The conversion itself was quite sudden, wasn't it? Sparked by reading a book.
It was profoundly impactful, yes. As an agnostic, reading St. Teresa of Avila's autobiography one night in 1921 just hit her. She famously closed the book and said, "This is the truth," and she was baptized Catholic in 1922.
Which wasn't easy for her family.
No, it initially deeply disappointed her mother and many of her Jewish friends. Though later, her sister Rosa actually followed her into the Catholic faith and eventually into the convent.
She wanted to become a nun right away, didn't she? A Carmelite like Teresa of Avila.
She did, a discalced Carmelite. But her spiritual advisors, her mentors, dissuaded her at first. They felt her intellectual gifts were needed in the world.
So she taught instead.
Yes, she taught at a Dominican girls' school in Speyer for several years. And during this time, she did incredibly important intellectual work, bridging her phenomenological background with Catholic philosophy. She even translated Thomas Aquinas' major work, De Veritate, On Truth, from Latin into German.
Wow. So she was actively integrating her philosophical training with her newfound faith.
Deeply. But that call to the contemplative life, to Carmel, it never really left her.
And eventually she answered it.
Yes. With the rise of the Nazis making academic life impossible for her anyway, she finally entered the Carmelite convent in Cologne in October 1933.
Taking a new name.
Sister Theresia Benedicta a Cruz, Carissa, Blessed of the Cross, a name that became tragically fitting. Later in 1938, she reflected deeply on the meaning of the cross, seeing it somehow as the destiny of God's people, a profound mystery she felt called to embrace.
And her mystical theology developed further in the convent.
It did. Her essay, Ways to Know God, written later but published posthumously, is a key text. It engages with the mystical tradition, particularly Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite.
And for her, mystical theology wasn't quite science.
No, not science in the modern sense. It was more about finding ways to speak about God, grounded in experience, recognizing the limits of human concepts. She talked about natural theology, how the created world points towards its divine source, with God being the primary theologian, revealing himself through creation.
And negative theology, that sounds intriguing.
That's the idea of drawing near to God by denying what he is not. You ascend through the scale of created things. God is not just goodness, not just wisdom, not just being. As we understand it, finding God isn't fully captured at any level. It's recognizing God's ultimate transcendence, that God is beyond all our categories.
A path through negation. It's a beautiful, if challenging, concept.
It is.
But this period of relative peace in the convent was tragically cut short by the darkness gathering outside.
Terribly so. She'd already been forced to resign her teaching post back in 1933 because of the Nazi Aryan certificate laws denying positions to Jews.
And she tried to speak out, wrote to the Pope.
She did. In April 1933, she wrote a courageous letter to Pope Pius XI describing the persecution of Jews in Germany, denouncing the Nazi regime, and pleading with him to speak out openly against it.
Did that have any effect?
The Vatican did respond, but there was no public encyclical specifically addressing her points at that time. It remains a point of historical debate.
As the situation worsened, she had to move, right? For safety.
Yes. As the Nazi regime escalated its persecution, her superiors transferred her to the Carmelite convent in Echt, Holland, hoping it would be safer there. Her sister Rosa joined her there too, having also converted.
But safety was an illusion.
Tragically, yes. When the Dutch Catholic bishops publicly condemned Nazi anti-Semitism and deportations from the pulpit in July 1942.
And Nazis retaliated.
Immediately and brutally. They rounded up all Catholics of Jewish descent in Holland. Edith and Rosa were arrested by the Gestapo in the Echt convent on August 2nd, 1942.
Just horrific. A direct reprisal for the bishop speaking out.
Exactly. Her final journey was swift and terrible. Transported first to Westerbork transit camp, then deported east.
To Auschwitz.
To Auschwitz-Birkenau. They arrived likely on August 7th. She and her sister Rosa were murdered in the gas chambers, probably on August 9th, 1942.
Even in those last horrific days, there are accounts of her composure, her compassion.
Yes. Survivor testimonies from Westerbork and on the transport describe her as calm, trying to help mothers care for their children, assisting other sufferers with great compassion. Even in the face of utter dehumanization, her character shone through.
Such a tragic end, but her legacy clearly has endured and grown.
Immensely. She was beatified by Pope John Paul II in Cologne in 1987, and then canonized as St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross in 1998. He recognized her not just as a martyr, but for her intellectual contributions, her bridge building between faith and reason, Judaism and Christianity.
And there's even a movement to have her recognized further as a doctor of the church.
That's right. An international commission was launched by the Discalced Carmelites in 2022, formally requesting Pope Francis declare her a doctor of the church. That's a very rare title, given only to saints whose theological writings have had a profound and lasting impact on the church. It speaks to the depth of her thought.
Her cultural legacy is broad too, isn't it? Beyond just the church.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There are museums dedicated to her, memorial statues, that striking one in Cologne, for instance, showing her embodying both her Jewish roots and Christian faith, alongside a pile of empty shoes representing the Holocaust victims.
Powerful imagery.
Very. And films, songs, novels inspired by her life. She continues to resonate across many different fields and traditions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Edith Stein, it's just staggering. Her life profoundly connected rigorous philosophy, deep spirituality, and courageous social conviction in a way you rarely see.
It really is a rare synthesis of sharp analytical thought and profound lived human experience.
We hope exploring her life encourages you, our listeners, to reflect, maybe on how her insights into empathy could shift your own interactions.
Or how her layered view of the person, body, soul, spirit might offer a richer way of understanding human existence.
And perhaps how her relentless commitment to truth, whether she found it in philosophy or in faith, guided her through some of history's darkest moments.
Her ideas, born from such intense experience and thought, feel incredibly relevant today, don't they? For understanding ourselves, our connections in this complex world.
Absolutely. Final thought to maybe mull over. How does Edith Stein's unique path, from agnostic philosopher to Carmelite nun to a saint martyred at Auschwitz, how does that challenge our modern ideas about where we find knowledge, faith, and meaning, especially when facing immense suffering or conflicting intellectual views?
And what does her life, that constant interplay between deep personal conviction and courageous public action, tell us today?